It's a showstopper. Look at that super shiny, beautifully golden brown crust. Mushrooms are so tender. Today we're making a mushroom and Gruyere crostata. And it's one of those recipes that sounds really fancy, and it's even gonna look like I took a lot of time to make it, but it's super easy, comes together really quickly, and best of all, it's a meatless option for your weeknight dinners. So I'm gonna start with some pie dough. Crostata is very, as I said, easy to do. It's rustic. That's why I like it so much, because it doesn't have to be perfect. I usually keep a couple boxes of these in my freezer, but you can use a homemade pie dough if that's something you prefer. And I'm just going to unroll this. You can see I just dusted my board with a little bit of bench flour just to prevent it from sticking. And I want it to be 14 inches wide. So crostatas are a free form tart, so they're not super specific. You don't have to worry about crimping everything perfectly, which is another reason why I love to make these. So this is 14 inches, and I'm going to just transfer it to a baking sheet I have here, and I lined it with some parchment paper, which really is just gonna help with, preventing it from sticking to the baking sheet and doing dishes. So I've got 6 portobello mushrooms here, and they are super meaty. You're gonna get like a ton of that earthy, mushroomy flavor. But I love these too because they're substantial. Like you really actually feel like you're eating something hearty, and it's a vegetable. But what I wanna do first is I'm gonna take the stem off of each mushroom, and I'm also gonna remove the gills. And the best way to do that is to just use a regular old spoon. And so I'll just pop off the stem. Usually it's pretty easy, I just can use my thumb, but you can use a knife too. So the gills, the only thing they'll really do if I were to leave them on is it's gonna turn the crostata a muddy color. So that's the reason why I'm removing them. There's really no other kind of flavor difference or anything. Now, if you couldn't find portobello mushrooms or they weren't in terrific condition, you can totally substitute other types of mushrooms here. Just be sure that the weight is about 1.5 pounds before you remove the stem. All right, I got my bowl of gills, my gill bowl. Now, as I said, I'm just gonna use just a damp cloth just to remove any kind of visible dirt, which I actually don't see a ton on these. So I'm gonna slice the mushrooms 1/4 inch thick. And at first you might think it looks a little too big, but trust me, as it cooks down, you're gonna want that thickness because you actually wanna be biting into a mushroom. I have 2 boys that are Sonic the Hedgehog fanatics. So I can't look at mushrooms without thinking of Sonic and the Mushroom Planet. It's all the time at our house. All right, so I also have a leek. Leeks are great. They give a really nice vegetal flavor, slight oniony flavor, but it's delicate and they're really gentle. And I love these leeks. This is about 1 pound. And what I'm gonna do is trim the dark green parts off. You can keep these in a Ziploc bag. You can use these for making stock or different types of soup. And then this is the white and the light green part that we're gonna be using. So what I like to do for leeks, I'm gonna be cutting them into thin slices. I like to start by cutting the root end off first. And then just to make it more manageable for myself, I'm just gonna cut this in half right here. Now here's the thing with leeks. They can be really dirty, sort of similar to scallions, like one of those things you don't realize that they actually hold on to a good amount of dirt. And this one's relatively clean. It's actually really clean. But as you can see, the leeks have these different layers here, and oftentimes you can see a little bit of dirt that likes to hang out in between the layers. So you can run the leeks under some cold water at this stage, but because we're going to be slicing them thin, I'm just gonna do all that up front, and then I'm gonna submerge them in a bowl, a large bowl full of really cold water, just to ensure all the dirt comes off. So the leeks with the mushrooms, they cook down together, and they become just sort of one of those really nice pairings of flavors, because you have the earthy mushrooms, you have the slightly sweet sort of oniony leek, no tears because it's not an onion. And it may feel sort of fibrous, but it gets super, super soft when it cooks. So I'm just gonna hop over to the sink, fill the bowl with water, and just give it a little bit of agitation just to make sure that the dirt comes off of the leeks. Now, before I assemble the crostata, I'm actually gonna cook the vegetables first. So what I need to do is heat up some olive oil, and you can see I've got a 12-inch nonstick skillet. That's about a tablespoon. All right, I'm gonna put that over medium-high until the oil is shimmering. But in the meantime, I have a few other friends that want to come play with us in our crostata. I'm gonna need about 2 ounces of the Gruyere. So you can use Emmentaler if you can find that, or goat cheese, or even blue cheese in this recipe. But there's something about the Gruyere cheese, the way it melts and its nuttiness. It's so delicious with the mushrooms and the leeks. All right, I'd say we are at a shimmer there, so I'm gonna add the leeks and the mushrooms directly into the skillet. Again, it's gonna look overcrowded and full, but it will cook down. So we're gonna cook these with a little bit of salt, half a teaspoon of salt, for about 10 minutes until the vegetables are tender and the mushrooms are gonna be beginning to brown. All right, so add a little bit of salt here. So the salt's gonna help to bring out some moisture, and it's also gonna, of course, season the vegetables. But it's important to do that at this stage because otherwise we'd have a soggy crostata, and that's no bueno. So the mushrooms and leeks need to cook for about 10 minutes until tender and the mushrooms are beginning to brown. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna prepare our final ingredients. I've got 2 ounces of Gruyere cheese, a couple cloves of garlic, and some fresh rosemary. So my guys love rosemary. It's a little does go a long way, but if you are not a fan of it, you can substitute thyme. But rosemary does really well in this crostata because it's a woody herb. So it holds up nicely to the heat from the oven and the heat from the skillet. So you want to go in and stir the mushrooms and the leeks every so often just to make sure everything has contact with that hot skillet. It smells really good. Okay, I'm going to just grate this Gruyere. So I've seen even nuts being used with this kind of a vegetarian crostata. You might want to give that a try too. All right, chef snack, because don't want to go too far on that grater. Probably just taste it, make sure it's not poisonous. So far, so good. All right, just keep stirring those mushrooms. They're definitely heading in the right direction. You can see how much these have already cooked down. So just gonna give them a few more minutes. We are there for sure. Looking great. Mushrooms are super tender. As you can see, they're beginning to brown. Beautiful. So I'm gonna add the garlic and the rosemary. And just cook them for like 30 seconds, just until you can smell them. It smells so good right now. I can't even with the garlic and the rosemary. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer the vegetables directly into the center of the pie dough. I'm gonna leave a 2-inch border, and that's because we're gonna be folding it over. Again, free-form, rustic crostata. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of rearrange it just a wee bit. And then I'm gonna sprinkle that Gruyere cheese directly on top of the mushrooms. This is one of those things you wake up and you have leftovers maybe from the night before. Totally would have this for breakfast. Again, we've got a couple inch border right around the mushrooms, and you just want to go over the mushrooms. And then as you grab the rest of the dough, you're gonna create pleats, just like that. You know, when you see those pies in bakeries and they're really shiny and glistening and beautiful, well, that is from the help of an egg wash. So I'm just gonna lightly beat this egg. And then just using this brush, I'm gonna go all around the perimeter and just brush it ever so slightly along the dough. It's weeknight food, but it also could totally be company-worthy food as well. All right, the oven is preheated to 425 degrees. I've got an oven rack at the middle position. I'm gonna bake this for 15 to 18 minutes, rotating the sheet halfway through until it's golden brown. I think I need to call the people at Yankee Candle and ask them for the next scent series to be crostatas, because it smells so delicious. I'm just gonna let this sit for a few minutes to cool off and then sprinkle with a tablespoon of minced fresh chives. Okay, it is eating time. So I'm gonna use an offset spatula just to separate the crostata from the parchment. That's perfect. Now, oh yeah, nothing but net with that one. All right, so again, I've got a tablespoon of minced fresh chives. Just gonna sprinkle that over the top. Oh my gosh. It's a showstopper, as we would say here in Massachusetts. All right, and then slice and serve. So I'm going to try a little right now, because I think I should, you know? I'm willing to do that. Oh man, this looks delicious. Look at that super shiny, beautifully golden brown crust. Mushrooms are so tender. Oh my goodness. It's like one beautiful song. Everything goes together so beautifully. You've got those mushrooms, they're super meaty, but they're also really tender. And there's no sogginess here because we took the time to cook down those leeks and the mushrooms. And the pie dough is beautiful and tender and just a gorgeous golden brown color. This is a crostata that you need to make, and it needs to be on your dinner table ASAP. So good. Thanks for watching. The link for this recipe is in the description below. But I want to know, when it comes to baked goods, are you team sweet or team savory? Let me know in the comments. See you next time.